Hello, in today's video we're going to talk a little bit about probably the thing that I see people have the most problems with is turning acrylic. We all start with wood, we can cut through wood, we get our finish done on wood, then we try to go to acrylic, and I think a lot of people struggle with it, first in terms of tooling technique, in terms of cutting technique, and just in terms of tools. So today we're going to specifically focus on being able to turn with carbide tools. So we'll get into the carbide tools in a minute, but let's first take a look at acrylic. I think everybody classifies anything that's not wood as acrylic, and that's just definitely not true. There's a whole bunch of different acrylics that are sitting out there. This acrylic is acrylic acetate. It's probably the most common form of acrylic out there that we turn. It's got beautiful color, it's reasonably easy to turn, and most importantly, it's readily available everywhere. The next one is Acrylic, and this one's a lot harder to turn. I mean, it looks just like the acrylic that we had earlier, but you can tell the difference because if I look at it, there's fine chips all over the place. And this is a lot harder to turn, but if you watch this whole video, we're definitely going to get to how to turn this one, and you're going to be able to turn this one like a pro. The next one is Opal. Now, you can tell that this one and this one look surprisingly the same. This one's the Acrylic, this one is the Opal. Opal, once again, a nice, easy one to turn, especially depending on who your blank makers are. You can tell how easy it is for people to turn these. This one's pretty interesting. These are the camo blanks, and I don't know if you're familiar with the camo blanks and you've actually tried to turn the camouflage blanks, but these are a lot harder to turn. They're more like a rubber, and I know people call them acrylic, but they turn tougher. They're a little bit stronger, and as I said, they have a definite rubber feel to them. I love these. These are the PR blanks, the cat blanks, and the nice thing about these is, once again, easy to turn, but we're going to have to make sure that our speed when we're turning this is appropriate, because these will powder off, and you're going to see that instead of getting fine streams on the turning when you're doing it, you're going to get more of a powder look to it. And then finally we got our handmade blanks. This is an Opal. We'll actually turn this Opal when we're going through the parts on turning a little bit later. This one's hand cast, and you can see it's got a little protective coating on here from when we were doing the casting process. And then finally, you've probably seen tons of these blanks out there too. Also, these are poly resin, typically Silmar 41, and these blanks are done in a mold, and they have a little bit different technique that we're going to have to worry about because we have sharp edges followed by rounds followed by sharp edges. So we're going to go through all of that, but the nice thing that you're going to know is once you learn these tooling techniques and once we learn the 3 basic cuts that we're going to do, every one of these blanks turn exactly the same. So my choice of tools is the EasyWood wood turning tools. And the nice thing about them is there's 3 different cutters. Today we're only going to focus on the round cutter. We can use the other cutters for doing different other specialized techniques. I'll cover them in other videos, but today we're going to be able to do everything specifically with this round cutter. So there are 3 different kinds of cuts that we're going to make. The one cut's going to be what we call a scoop cut. And when we're going to scoop cut, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the blank and scoop it out. We're going to go into the blank, scoop it out, into the blank, and scoop it out. Then we're going to do a shaving cut. The shaving cut is going to cut clear across the blank, and we're going to do it at a 45-degree angle. Everything is going to be at a 45-degree angle. That's going to allow me to get the minimum surface contact of that round cutter on the blade, but you're going to see we're going to get beautiful peel or shaving cuts when we're going to be doing that one. Then finally, we're going to work the edges just a little bit, and then finally we're going to do our final sanding and shaving cuts. So the key is, once these 3 cuts are mastered, all we're going to have to do is focus in our speed. If I'm cutting aluminite, I'm going to be able to go faster. If I'm cutting the Acrylic, I'm simply going to slow down my technique. And if I'm cutting the poly resin bar, once again, I'm going to slow down my technique. The technique is going to be the same, right? We're going to do a scoop cut in, we're going to then do our peel or shaving cuts across, we're going to work the ends, and then we're finally going to go through and do our final and sanding cuts. So before we start the video, let's take a look at the way that and this is my personal technique, like to actually have my hand position. So you're typically used to seeing when you're using a tool that you have your hand on here, it's up against the bar, and I'm controlling it from back here. Now when we're working on a pen, I want to have a little bit more precision when I'm doing this. If I'm holding it back here, notice all the room that I have to be making a mistake or turning it or twisting it. Even though I'm trying to keep it to my body, and I'll continue to keep it to my body, I do have this turned. So you'll see, and let's focus it in on the first video when you're looking at hand technique, and I'll mention it, is my hand technique is significantly different. For me, I like to take the tool and I'll put it completely locked up under my arm. This finger will be going over the tool, and then I'll introduce my thumb here, and then when I'm turning, it's more like when I'm writing with a pencil. All my control and all my hand movement is here. So you can see here, it's really, really hard for me to make any kind of sharp or dramatic move. I'm turning it just in this little area. Another thing about using these tools, and we're going to talk about it after the second video, is sharpening. But what I want you to notice is when I'm making my first initial scoop cuts, I'm more straight on into the blank and I'm scooping it out using this part of the tool. And then when I'm actually going to do my shaving cuts or my peeling cuts, I'm going to be doing it more on the corner part of this one. And you're going to see that I'm going to introduce the tool at a 45-degree angle. I'm going to move it down, and it's going to be really important then when we talk about tool maintenance, why I'm doing it. So let's start to do a little bit of turning. Okay, so now let's take a look at actually doing the turning process. So what I'm going to do is what I called originally the scoop cuts. And what you're going to see here is I'm going to be moving the tool in, and I'm moving it from right to left. When I get about 3/4 of the way, I'm going to go from left to right. So what I want you to focus in is on the top edge. Whenever I'm doing my turning, I am never looking at the bottom edge. I am always looking at the top edge and looking what my form looks like. So you can see here when I'm making my initial cuts, I'm getting chips. Can you see the chips flying and chips falling on there? You're going to see now it's going to change. As I'm getting round, now I'm starting to get more peels, and I'm getting nice streams, and I'm getting peels of cuts going across. So all I'm trying to do is work my blank round. I got to the 3/4 mark, so now I'm going to start on the other end, and I'm going to work my way across the blank the other way. Simply trying to get the blank round. So normally I'd have a vacuum on, and you'd see that everything would be vacuuming away. Fortunately, I don't have that, so let's do the best we can at trying to keep this thing cleaned. So now my next cut is what I call the peel cut or the shaving cut. I'm going to introduce the tool at a 45-degree angle, and you can see here I've got a 45-degree angle. And what I'm trying to do is just catch the point. What that's going to give me is the minimal amount of contact, but now watch the big shavings I'm going to get. So I'm going to get really big peel shavings out of the tool, and see if you take a look at the stuff on top, it's rather broad or fat. And we're going to take a look at the evolution when I'm starting to do further cuts down the road. But can you see here, all I did was catch it at the corner, and once again, I was able to be quite aggressive with this tool. That's why I like using carbide tools, is I can be very aggressive with the cut when I'm making the cut. So you can see here, once again, I'm going to find the corner, and I'm going to just make one more rounding cut to just get the thing down to about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of the way that I've got my blank. And then now what we're going to do after that is we're going to work our edges. So let's take a look at working the edges. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start near towards the bushing, and I'm going to work my way back into the blank. And I know all the pros out there are going to say, well, you know what, when you get to the bottom, that's an uphill cut. You're really not supposed to be doing that. I don't care. What I want is I want a little something here, and you can see here that I can catch the tool on and do a little bit of pressure so that I don't have any chip out around the edge of the bushing. So watch. See, I'm taking it in, I'm pulling it in. I'm taking it in, and I'm pulling it in. Now, when we talked earlier about all the different kinds of acrylics, all these cuts apply. We do it in the exact same sequence that we're doing it here. We would just simply do it slower. And can you see the shavings that I'm getting here now? Now I'm no longer getting those flat blade shavings. I'm getting more of the hair-like shavings. So we're going to blow this clean, and we're going to do our final cuts to actually get my shaping. So here, once again, 45-degree angle, and I'm going to take the tool, introduce it into the blank, and I'm slowly moving across the blank. And once again, I'm emphasizing that I'm doing it slowly. And you can see here now, fine hairs are coming off this thing. I'm no longer getting those flat blade cuts. I've got fine hairs. And now simply all I got to do is now blend my cuts
back together. So I had those little edge cuts that I had there, so I'm blending it back in. I like to have a little bit of taper on all my pens. To me, it makes it look like it's something that was custom made or handmade. So there you go. That's basically the series of cuts.
So now in this second video, I'm going to do an extreme close-up of it, and what I want you to focus in on is the peel cut, where we're starting it at the 45-degree angle and then we're cutting across at that 45-degree angle, maintaining that angle, and you're going to see how incredibly aggressive we're going to be. And then after I'm done with this blank, I'll actually post a nice picture of the pen when I'm done.
Okay, now on this one, we're simply going to focus in on that peel cut. And you see that I've gone to a pretty extreme close-up. You can see the tool is going to get introduced at a 45-degree angle. This one's already pre-round. So now I'm going to just let the thing speed up. And now watch, as all I'm going to do is catch that corner. And it's going to be hard to tell because I'm actually getting really nice shavings. Look at how quick I can go down and round on this thing. So I'm just making that cut and I am peeling it all the way back. So anybody who says you can't be aggressive, you can be aggressive as long as you understand how the tool is working and what the function and what you're doing with your tool and where the position of that tool is. So you can see here, I'm just going to peel all that stuff away, clean it up for us so that we can do another cut on here. So we're simply going to do another cut. Once again, now I'm going to try to get it perfectly straight across the edges. And you can see here, I can even speed up the cut a little bit. So I speed up the cut. I get to about that 16th to an eighth of an inch off. And then I'm done. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do all my other finishing on this thing. And I'm ready to peel it all the way back.
So hopefully this shows you my technique for how to do turning with carbide tools and acrylics. If you still have challenges with it, I got to tell you, I love going to the negative rake cutter. This is the Easy wood turning tool, and it's got a negative rake cutter. And what basically happens is, let's call it a chamfer. It's got a nice chamfer on the edge here, which makes this tool a lot less aggressive. So all we're going to have to do, we're going to use the same tooling techniques and everything that we just talked about in terms of scoop cuts, peel cuts, finishing cuts, and everything, except we're going to go just a little bit slower to let the tool do the work. The most important part of using either one of these tools, and I think where people struggle, is one of the things that I want to mention is that the pressure is never in. I'm never putting pressure into the blank. What I'm doing is I'm putting my pressure, especially when my hand position is this way, I'm putting pressure across the blank. And that's why I'm using that 45-degree cut, is I'm actually putting pressure across the blank and not into the blank. And I'm basically letting the tool do all the work. I'm just introducing the tool at that 45-degree angle, walking it across, going really slow, and letting it cut. So the biggest questions I get on these carbide tools is in terms of maintenance. So let me give you my take on the maintenance and how the maintenance works. Each cutter head has about 20 to 40 hours of cutting ability per side. And I like to call it 4 sides that I have on here. Now, if you remember earlier when I talked about introducing the tool straight on, and then when I'm making my finishing cuts, my scooping cuts, straight on, and then when I'm making my peeling cuts, I've got it at a 45-degree angle. So in essence, I'm using this part to do the rough cuts, then I'm using this part to do all my fine cuts. Well, then all I'm going to do is when I want to actually do the maintenance on this cutter head is I'm going to unscrew this and I'm going to rotate it. And you know what? I'll rotate it just under a quarter, more like maybe a proud eighth. But if you think about it, now the part that's actually been doing the fine cuts are now doing the roughing cuts, and I got a brand new clean edge. So I'm still getting maximum support out of, or maximum use out of actually doing this cutting head on here. And so one of the things that people ask me all the time is, can you sharpen these cutting heads? And I'm going to tell you, this is probably the most controversial part of using carbide tools. I read all the time on websites that yes, you can, and you can use a a diamond hone and you can be able to cut it. But you know what? The honest answer is you're not really doing anything to the cutting head other than burnishing it. And you may get a couple more hours out of burnishing it. But if you look at this tool when I have it up here, if I want to be cutting on the burr, notice that the burr is coming up this way. And so my burr is coming up, and that's what I'm cutting on. I'm cutting on the burr. Now if I go and I do a diamond hone on here and I rub it on the diamond hone, now my burr is this way. And so now when I'm making those cuts, especially those finishing cuts, I'm no longer cutting on the burr. I've lost the burr. The burr I want to be this way, and I have my burr. Now I'm cutting on it here. So is it a little bit sharper? Yes. Can I get a couple more hours out of it? Yes. Will I get the precision out of it that I want out of it? Absolutely not. I want to be able to use this burr. And if you look behind me, I probably have about $2,000 worth of sharpening tools back there. The nice thing about it is these easy, so it would take a long time for me to buy $2,000 worth of cutting heads to get the same cutting effectiveness that I have when I use my high-speed steel tools. So you know what? The long and short of it is invest in the cutting heads. For the most part, if you're getting 80 hours out of your 80 to 100 hours out of a cutting head, for the most part, that's probably a year for a lot of people, if not a half a year. So at $20 a cutting head, it's much better to always get a fresh edge. It's always a weird position where people go, well, you know, it's not cutting really well. And then you say, well, are the tools sharp? And they say, well, I haven't turned the head, or yes, I just did it on a diamond hone. You're not getting a fresh edge. And so when people ask me all the time, when do I know the time to actually turn and sharpen my tools? The answer is, when you're asking me that question, you really know. You know that that's the time that you should be sharpening it, but what you're trying to do is get that one more pen out of it. And you know what? I would rather turn it one pen early and get a beautiful cut on the next thing that I have than one pen late and have to throw that blank away. So I have another video out there on prepping acrylics and painting the acrylics and doing all the tube work, sanding and gluing and everything else. So if you're into doing acrylics, I highly advise you to take a look at my other video. So with that, I'm done. So if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section below. I also ask that if you have any ideas for videos that you would like me to take care of, put them in the comments below. I do read them, I do try to reply to everybody, and I do take suggestions for new videos from that on bottom. And more importantly, if you like this video, give me a nice little thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I appreciate the time that you take to watch the videos, and I hope that this is something there to help you. Thank you. This video made possible by the fine folks at Exotic Blanks. For all your pen making needs, Exotic Blanks has you covered. Find them at www.exoticblanks.com. And also by Pen Makers International, the educational source for pen making.